right, we're back again for NAL Live. This is episode 6, and it's a special afternoon show. I figured let's test out different times. Let's see if people like watching during the day or evening better. And so today, which is cool because we have our first team owner on, and I love that because, you know, the owners usually never get any of the glory. It's like they only get brought up if it's bad. So, but that's probably why you don't know Joshua Blair, because he does it right. You know, he is the owner of the Columbus Lions. And welcome to the show, Joshua. How are you?
I'm very good, Andrew. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad you joined me. Like I said, first owner. And but like I want to get to know you a little bit more, like before Columbus Lions. So kind of walk us through like where you're from, you know, where'd you grow up, and kind of your career up until the Columbus Lions.
Okay, well, so I was born in San Antonio, Texas, and my father was in the Air Force, so he was a F-4 navigator. So I had an interesting life. I got a chance to travel around the world. I lived in Spain for 7 years. I was able to travel, through that and some other things. I've probably traveled to 40 some odd different countries.
Oh, wow.
Lived in 4 or 5 different continents. So my main, I lived in North Carolina, Goldsboro, North Carolina for a while. Lived in Spain for 7 years. And then when I went to high school in Spain, played football in Spain. In fact, played 8 and 9 man football, outdoor 8 and 9 man football, because our schools were so small. In fact, my school with 500 students had to field 2 varsity teams, and we had to play each other for homecoming. So that was it was good and bad, I guess. If you won, it was great. If you didn't win, it was terrible. And then when I finished high school, I went to Brigham Young University, and they're in Utah, Provo, Utah. And then when I graduated from college, I went in the Army. I was an infantry officer in the Army. And then I kind of bounced around, lived in some different places there as well. And then when I got out of the Army, I moved down to I worked in a few different companies, and then eventually I decided, I want to move back to Columbus, Georgia, and start a scuba shop, because scuba diving was my passion. I can remember I was working for a company called Master Brand Cabinets in Auburn, Alabama. And when I was there, I remember on Easter week, I worked, 93 hours that week. And I got my 40 hours worth of pay. And I realized, if I put this much effort into something that I owned, man, I'd be a millionaire someday. And so while I'm not quite there, I decided, what do I love to do? And I love to scuba dive. So I said, I was a scuba instructor. I said, I wasn't a very good one in the beginning, but I said, I love to scuba dive. Why don't I do that? So I had to figure out, imagine taking a hobby and trying to figure out how many things can I do with this hobby to get people to pay me to do it. And so I knew I started a scuba shop, Chattahoochee Scuba, here in Columbus, Georgia. And we learned very quickly that our main focus were veterans and soldiers and veterans, and then those that wanted a professional career in diving. And so we focused on our team focused on that, and we kind of made a name for ourselves in the veteran community. And so we just did a lot of things. We, as part of that career, I got to do a lot. I've been able to travel all over the world and go diving. Just a year ago, I was in the Galapagos Islands diving, and dove with, I think it was 23 whale sharks, not all at one time, but over the course of a week, saw 23 different whale sharks while I was diving. And then, I've been able to do some fun things. In Columbus, Georgia, they decided one year to take out the dams. Dams have been there 150 years. And I was contracted to go down and search the entire riverbed and find out what all is down there. We found predecessor dams, or dams that were in front of the dams that they used to block the water so they could build a bigger dam behind it. We found all these old artifacts, and some of this stuff nobody had seen in 150 years, and I was the first one to get a chance to see it. And it was wonderful. And then one of my kind of claims to fame was I was featured in a documentary I know that Steve and Jeff were fans of documentaries. So the documentary was the Chattahoochee Unplugged, and it actually won 2 Emmys. And so I was one of the featured people in it, and that was a cool, kind of a cool thing. It was Ted Turner's son who produced it, Rhett Turner, and then over time, I just kind of ran my business and went through life. And then all of a sudden it was actually a little kid, I'll call him Lightning, because he came in to do swimming lessons at my scuba shop. And, so Lightning, we were,
is that Jason Gibson's nickname or?
No, but funnily enough, interestingly enough, he was the first movie the kid and I actually got to see together was Cars. And he comes and tells me one day, he said, you know what? He goes, you know what, Mr. Josh, my name is Lightning because I'm fast and you're Mater because you're slow. And so he started calling me Mater, and eventually that ended up becoming Matey for a long time. So that was my nickname for a long time. And so, but we were looking for something to do one night. He was about 4 or 5 years old. And we saw that the Columbus Lions were playing a football game. And I was a huge, huge football fan. And I hated when the NFL season ended and I had to wait 5 months for it to start picking back up again. I mean, that 5 months was just, for me, it was just dredge and work. And I was such a big fan of football. So I saw the Columbus Lions were playing. So we decided to go to a game. It was the middle of the season. We went to a game and we sat up way in the nosebleed seats. And he said, Matey, this ain't gonna do. We need to come back again, and we need to sit down where we could see the game. And it wasn't like it was a terrible, but we were kind of up higher than everybody else. So we decided to come back in. We watched another game. We went down, and I think I talked to Tanima Willick, our ticketing person. She was wonderful in the beginning. So and she still is, by the way. But so we went into the ticket office and we talked to her and I said, hey, what's the best seats we can get? And she was able to get me a second or third row seat into the VIP section. So while we're there in the VIP section, I can remember we did that for a couple of games and we were really getting into it. And especially, what he really liked was he could get on the field after the game. He'd get on the field, we'd bring a football, we'd play football on a professional football field. We'd get a chance to talk to the players and start meeting them. And then one day they had a water boy, and it was this little kid. He must have been 4 years old, I think, or something like that, 4 or 5 years old. He comes running off the bench, and he gets probably to the front of the goal line, and he just stops and puts the balls down because they were so heavy for him. And he picks them up and goes another 5 or 10 yards. And it was just kind of funny because they just paused the game because this was an interesting piece. And then it just naturally they paused the game for this 5-year-old little boy to run out there. And so Lightning decides, he goes, Matey, I can do that. So that week we walked into the office and we talked to Tanima about it. She mentioned it to Coach Gibson, and then Coach Gibson sent Lightning a postcard and said, hey, how'd you like to be the water boy for a game? So we come back in the office the next week. And so Coach Gibson or Jason's talking to Lightning, and he goes, how'd you like to be the water boy for a week? He goes, no, I'm going to be the water boy for the whole season. And he was a water boy for 3 years. And so the way I got involved with the Lions, of course, I had to bring him to the games, and we would make an excuse to come 3 hours early, and we just threw the football around on the field, 2 or 3 hours ahead of time. And then when it came time for the team to go do their things in the intros, I would pass them off to Coach Meek, and then I would go sit in my seat. And by this time, I had gotten front row seats. And eventually, Jason was on the wall all the time on my side, and he'd come talk to me because he, it was, I would say in the beginning it was a little awkward. Both of us, he was always busy. I didn't want to bug him. I mean, he's probably the busiest person I know. But over time, we got to talk, and he'd ask me questions about football when I'd come in the office, and eventually, I expressed some interest in, what does it take to be an owner, and they kind of ran with it, and over about a year of talking about it, Jason came in and asked if I was interested in coming along and being part of the ownership group, and so a few months later, I went ahead and bought the shares that I needed to become an owner, and here we are.
So how long, you said you moved to Columbus. How long have you lived in Columbus?
I moved here in 2004, and it's the longest I've ever lived anywhere. Of course, it's not 2020, I've been here for 16 years. I've been stationed here a couple times, but before that, I had never lived anywhere more than 4 years in my life. And so I got a chance to move around. And it's kind of weird because, having now been here and putting down roots, it's kind of nice, but I've that itch to travel is always there. I got married about 2 years ago. My wife got at first I traveled so much that she didn't want to travel, but now that the corona hit, she's begging to travel.
It's like, let's get out. Let's get out of here.
Right.
What was it about Columbus? Like why settle there of all places?
Well, the big reason was I had been stationed here for a year or two, and I became a scuba instructor here in Columbus. And so when I decided to open up a dive shop, it was naturally a good place because I already had a network of people that I had trained, that I could go to, that I wasn't just walking to a new city somewhere and opening up a shop. I mean, I think that would be opening a dive shop already is very difficult. And so when I just decided, hey, let's try Columbus, because at the time, it was one of the largest markets that there was no PADI, which is the group that I'm affiliated with. They didn't have a shop in Columbus, and it was one of the largest markets in the country that did not have a PADI dive shop. So it turned out to be. And then our first year open, we blew it out of the park, and it did really, really well back in 2005. And so it turned out to be a good decision.
So when I come to Columbus for a game, I'm gonna come a day or two early so I can get some scuba lessons. I've never done it. I've always kind of wanted to.
I've made friends with some fans from other teams, and I have always invited them to come. And we've had several take me up on the offer, and they'll come up for the game. And the morning before the game, they're scuba diving. Oh, there's Lonnie Outlaw. He's one of the players that I'm so excited to watch. I've been watching his highlights. I think he's like 6'7". I mean, I watched some of his things where he's going over the wall, and I'm excited to watch him play.
That should be a ticket package for you. Hey, you know what? Get scuba, certified, and go to a game.
Well, what we do is it's about a 3-hour process, and what you do is you learn. You don't get the whole thing, but it's like the first lesson. But by the end of the 3 hours, you're at the bottom of the pool diving. And you're right. You know what? That is a good ticket package, and I'll probably offer that to. If anybody's listening and wants to come dive before a game, my staff will take great care of you.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So, how long ago did you end up jumping in the ownership of Columbus?
I think we talked about it the whole first year of the NAL. So it was the second year of the NAL. So it's been 3 years since I've been one of the owners of the team. But I had been kind of going to all the games. I mean, I even went to some of the away games.
Lonnie's ready to go, man.
I'm excited to see him, and him paired up with some of our other receivers like Desmond Reese, who we picked him up in a tryout. Amazing kid. I remember I just looked at him, and he was this smallish, kind of, not really small. I mean, in relative terms, compared to Lonnie, he'll look a little shorter, but
right.
But he was an amazing kid, and just happened to be in the right place at the right time. He just has a football head about him. I remember looking at him, and I was like, he looks like King Ezekiel. He had the dreads and the beard and everything. He looked just like King Ezekiel from the shape of how his hair was. And so I went and talked to him that day, and then watched him get in a game. I watched Desmond get into a game, and my gosh, he got into a game because we were short on receivers or something that week, and he played really well. Picked up a fumble, did this. He just happened to be. He knows where the ball is, and he's always running the ball. And then so I kept pestering Jason. Why don't we bring him back? He's a local guy. He's great. He's got a big following, and we should bring him back. And he played a couple games for us, and then eventually came back, and then finished off the rest of the season. And he was just an amazing kid.
So you're kind of like Jerry Jones then too. You don't just own the team. You're doing player personnel too.
No, not in any way. I honestly leave that. I'm completely out of that. I might get involved if there's I was beating Jason up for a good kicker. We had great kickers, but sometimes they would have some off games, and we went through a period where we lost 3 games based on a kick, and that's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow when you miss an extra point, and you lose a game. And so I kind of I hit Jason up over and over, said, you need to find us a good kicker. I know that it's easy to have a local kicker, but we need a kicker because a kicker will make, I always thought a kicker made a huge difference of a game. He can score the equivalent of a touchdown or two and between deuces and extra points and field goals. And that's a huge difference. And I remember he called me up one day, he goes, you're going to love me for this. And he calls me and says, hey, we got a kicker out of Boise State, Tyler Rassa. And I said, so Tyler, he told me that he was a runner-up for the, I forget the name of the trophy that the kickers get. I mean, I think most people would.
They get a trophy?
I think so. But I was a kicker. I played kicker in high school, one of my positions that I played. So I was really big into that. And we brought him in, and we played his first game. We were playing the Massachusetts Pirates, and he scored 24 points in that game. I think he had 5 deuces, 2 field goals, and then a handful of extra points, to include with the winning extra point with no time left on the clock. Just decimated. His kicking game was just, amazing. And I still think there we go, the Lou Groza Award. That's what it is.
Thanks, Antoine.
Yeah, so he did. He was amazing. And I remember going out, I picked him up from the airport, not the airport, but I picked him up from the groom transportation, drove him in, talked to him a bunch, and then took him to practice, and I videotaped his first kick. He kicked a deuce on his first kick, just in practice, warm-ups. And it was just he was a great guy. I think he should be in the NFL. But I made one big mistake because I decided, this is arena football. We need to have it's got to be a lot of fan interaction, and so I created a walk-on song for him. Every time he walked on the field, it's time to play the game from wrestling, from Triple H. And so we would put that on, and who knew that this would destroy? Every time it would come on, he would miss. He would kick terribly. And so finally, the equipment manager said, everybody's running over to me in the middle of a game saying, hey, you got to turn that off. You got to turn that off. So we finally turned it off, and he picked up his game again. But then he went to the Massachusetts Pirates, and every time he'd come play us, we turned it back on every time he walked on the field, and he didn't do that great. Nice. So, but he was a great guy. I love Tyler, and he did really well in the I guess it was the AAF. So he did really well there, and hopefully he makes it to the NFL someday.
Well, Casey Smith, who just joined your ownership group, he and I go way back, and he's right. I had kicking issues as well. I signed a mascot, and I actually put the mascot in the game, and he made an extra point. So
wow,
it was like a non-league game.
It's a great gimmick. Casey's great. He's I've had a chance to meet with him a few times, and we're excited. We're the Columbus is trying something new where we're bringing on new partners and new owners. We would like to get up to about 20 owners if we could, and truly become a community-based team where businessmen in the community can get involved. They can all bring their talents and their abilities to help the team. And then, of course, there's a lot of benefits that if you're an owner of a football team, a professional football team, there are a lot of benefits that you get as well. And so there really is a great symbiotic relationship there. So I'm one of the changes that I made when I became the majority owner was dropping the minimum buy-in at 5% down to 1%. And so we've got a few owners coming in now, and there's a few more that we're in discussions with. So we're excited to see how that bears fruit.
And I'll tell you what, I think that's a great idea, because I can't tell you how many times I've been the solo owner or 90-something%. And man, it gets lonely by yourself. And I've never been like a huge money guy. I'm more of an operator. So there's little room for error when you're not properly capitalized. And like you said, if I ever got back into it, that's exactly what I would do. Is I would put together a large group of people that have a similar vision, that it's about the community. And not only do you get some extra capital, but you get those contacts, you get those people that now are bought in. And I can tell you right now, Casey's got a great deal of knowledge, and from a marketing standpoint and things like that. I mean, and obviously he's gonna help. It's his investment.
Right. No,
and
Well,
and the whole thing.
We pursued Casey once he came down and met with us last year. We realized that trying to buy in at a higher percentage, it also meant a significantly greater amount of money. So we realized that by dropping that, we can get people that are willing, that want to get in on the ground level, and be a true have true ownership in the team, not just a share of some random thing. And like some of the other, we've seen some of the other teams do this year. And we've already seen just some of the recommendations and things pointers that Casey's given Coach Gibson and I. It's made a huge impact, and we're looking forward to this season. And then we've got a couple more owners in the works, and one of the other ones we've been talking to, Eugenio Castro down in Chile. Great guy, great story. And we've got a lot of wonderful things coming up from that soon too.
Right here.
Yeah. So Eugenio, and I know Chris Siegfried talked about him from the owners' meetings.
Yeah.
But Eugenio is down in Chile, and he owns a sports academy, a developmental sports academy down there. And what he does is he trains people to play American football. And so, and not only it's not just in Chile, but it's also in Ecuador and Argentina, and they've got I remember talking, and I might be a little fuzzy on the exact details, but I think they had 6 countries in South America and Latin America come down to Chile and play. Each country put together an American football team, and then 5,000 people show up to the game, and 100,000 people look at it on social media. So there's a huge following. And so one of the things that I talked with him. I met him. It's kind of weird how we met. I was visiting Chile last year or a year and a half ago, when my best friend was stationed at the embassy. He was the senior military officer in Chile, and so while I was down there,
how is this real quick? NAL says go Sharks. We got who the hell's running the social media over there? Come on.
I'm sure that's Steven.
Exactly. Sorry.
Having fun.
I had to throw that up there.
So we're down there, and because I'm down there, all of a sudden I'm seeing on Facebook, more comments from people in Chile, and I happen to notice, this. There's Jason. Hopefully he's doing well. We love Jason. But I see a post from this guy in Chile, and I'm like, wait a minute, how is this guy involved in football? So I messaged him, and we started talking, and he immediately says, hey, I want to come up and I want to be part of the game. I want to do this. And so he happened to be in some meetings. I think he was an NCAA some sort of combine with the NFL, and he was up here representing South America with some players. And so I said, hey, you're in Orlando. Chris Siegfried's in Orlando. Let me get you two together. And then they got together, and Chris was, I wasn't sure if anything was going to come of it, but I guess Chris and him talked over their little translating thing that they do. And next thing I know, there all of a sudden there was some big plans. But we realized, you can have huge plans, but there might be 30 steps to get to the end of that plan. And so one of the things that I'm very thankful for with the NAL is they've learned you can't go to step 30 in a week or a year. You got to take those steps along the way and make sure you build a foundation, so that way every time you build another block on there, that you have a foundation that you can rely on. So if you take a step back, you're not falling all the way off the pyramid there. And so with Eugenio, we're bringing in one of his players, actually, with the South American. I forget what Chris called it, but we're able to bring in a player that doesn't count on our roster space. So we've already signed one of his players, Felipe, and he's going to be coming up and playing. He's going to be part of the team. He's going to have. I don't know whether he's seen that level of competition yet, but he'll get there quick. But I'm sure the team's going to love him. He's going to come up, and he's a big kid. I think he's 330 pounds, and so we'll see what he can do.
Well, the good thing is it gives him an opportunity to come up and compete and learn. And so hopefully, that can be a whole nother avenue to attract good talent and international talent, because let's face it, we want to grow the game globally, not just here in the U.S.
That's right.
So that's real exciting to hear.
Well, just real quick on that, one of the things we're excited about is Eugenio has been marketing the NAL in South America through all of his contacts. It's interesting. We see, if we look at our postings, we might get 5,000 views. Or I remember I had one play of Jermon Fortson that got 20,000 views. That it's just an amazing touchdown catch he had. But when they post it down there, he's getting 100,000 views on some of his posts.
Wow.
So imagine when the NAL season starts, and Columbus is working on trying to get a Spanish language broadcast as well as an English broadcast on YouTube. Imagine all the views and all the people that will get involved in football if we can bring in an entire continent, and we're the only game in town.
Has there been any discussions on maybe trying to do like an all-star game down there from the NAL teams up here, or some sort of exhibitions?
Well, I think there has been, but I don't know that that's in the first few steps. But one thing that we have done is Coach Gibson and I and some of the Lions team, we were planning on going down. In fact, we're supposed to be down there next month, except we've had to cancel it due to COVID, so we're going to do it next year. We are going to hold some football camps. We're going to go to Chile, Argentina, and Ecuador, hold a one-day camp in each place, and also Jason's going to hold a camp for the coaches, and help the coaches learn how to teach football at each of the locations. So that's something that we're going to do. We're going to do next year. We're going to have to do it at the beginning, not this season, but before the next season. And hopefully, the COVID, what's going on with COVID, we're allowed to do that.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. It's a process. So,
right.
It is going to take a little bit of time to get it, where you want it. But, he's excited for the Lions season upcoming. But going back
that's a great thing about new owners. They're very excited.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. You might not want to say on here, but do you have any kind of investment range that you look for owners coming in? And if you don't want to say, that's fine. I didn't prep you for that, but I was just thinking with that, so kind of people have an idea.
I know. I'll share my experience. When I came in, I spent $40,000 to come in, and what I appreciated was I quickly made it back in marketing, but by using the team and being able to market and bring and attract folks to the scuba shop, which was able to make it back. So we're looking at probably about $8,000 a share, just kind of a ballpark figure.
Yeah. No, I think that's cool, and I think that is so important to hit, though, because I can't tell you how much I've made off of not necessarily the team directly, but indirectly, like through other businesses that I own. Because number one is I believe in sports marketing. And so having seen it firsthand, when I can see my business get an increase in sales due to marketing through the team, it makes it easy to go out and sell in the community as well, because it can work and does work. So, but yeah, there's so many benefits that, ownership brings that, are not just black and white on the balance sheet. So,
and you probably won't make money on the football piece of it. That if we break even every year, we're going to be ecstatic.
Yep.
But my business has been exposed to a lot more people that ever would have if I had not gotten involved with football.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, you're not gonna go broke either. Having a nice group of people. So, it's more sustainable, and Columbus has been there, for years. I remember going down there as league president when the first team Jason was with started there, the Vipers, and nice community, nice facility. You got a building that is supportive, which is crucial. A lot of times, arena football is the redheaded stepchild in the arena, and you guys have a good support system there, which is great. How do you balance it all? You have your business, and the one thing I've seen over the years, sometimes you'll get a new owner in and they get so caught up in the team because it's fun and it's the shiny new toy, and then it neglects their business and they really struggle. So how do you kind of stay grounded and focused so that that doesn't happen with you?
Well, the bottom line is at the scuba shop, and then also with Jason, and I own a couple of other businesses as well. But with each of the businesses, you have to have built that staff up. And I couldn't have done what I'm doing with the Lions now, say 10 years ago. My business was not in a position where it would support that. I've got a great staff at the scuba shop. Jimmy and Jared do a wonderful job. I've got about 20 instructors who can handle that. In the beginning, I used to do most of the teaching, most of the operating, most of everything. I was kind of it's not really a one-man show, but I had to be there to make all the decisions and everything else. And so now what's been nice is I spent probably 5 years training up the staff to do what they can do now, to the point where I don't have to be in as much. And so now I can, instead of working in the business, I'm working on the business. A lot of people like to say that, but so now my job now is more to bring more business and then figure out how do I get my staff to be able to support what we can bring in. And sometimes we have to tap it back. I know during the summer months, we tripled when everything was shut down. There's no corona underwater, at least that we know of.
There's not.
So we did pretty good. And in a sense, we tripled the amount of students that were coming through. And so that was a challenge. But fortunately we had great staff, great instructors who, did what they could to make it work. And, some days it's stressful, some days it's not. But the big key is make sure that, one, I try not to take my work home with me. So I started yesterday, I think, because now I realize I got about a month's worth of bookkeeping to do in the next 7 days.
I felt bad the other day though, because you were like, "Yeah, it's my wife's birthday," and I told her I wasn't going to be working, and I keep messaging you back. I was like, "Should I stop or just continue?"
No, it's all good. So basically, I try. You just have to know what's going to be important. The one good thing about football is we've set up the office so that it can run on its own. We brought in some good people. We brought in Curtis Minifield. We've got Tanima who works there. We've got Rick as the salesperson, and then we've got a lot of people who come in and volunteer and help out when we need it in their specific areas. And then we have some great owners. We've got John Hargrove, and John's an amazing guy. He's one of his positions is the civilian assistant to the Secretary of the Army. So he has a lot of connections. He's the kind of guy that when he walks onto Fort Benning, the protocol in office knows he's coming. And so they have somebody, wherever he walks in, he is, I don't know if handled is the right word, but basically they know he's there and they don't want him running around post all these different places on his own. They want to make sure that, he doesn't want to go surprise one of the generals. And then you got Mike Hall, he's been a wonderful addition to the team. And then Jay Patel, Dr. Patel, he's been great, helped us out with quite a bit. And so we've got a great staff, and we have to empower them to do their jobs, because if they will do their jobs, that will allow me to do, my piece of it, which is not a lot of it. Mine gets more to the level of, hey, here's what we want to do. And my job really is to pick holes in it, figure out how do we make whatever they want, their idea, how do we make that a little bit better, and how do we support it from the ownership group? And also, is it something that's doable, and can we afford to do that?
Are you considered the managing partner for the club, or?
Yeah, I am. I'm the managing partner. I have the majority share in the team now. I started out with a small percentage, and then, because you had, at the time you had Kiki and Skip Sada, who had been there basically almost from the beginning, and then Keith Norrid and Duke Liberatore, and so all of them were at a point where, they'd been involved with it nearly 13, 14 years, and it was time for them. They were kind of getting up there in age. There were some health issues, and so I just happened to come in at a good time and work with each one of them, as a group, and then was able to purchase their shares from them, and then decided, hey, we need, I'm not as affluent as some of the other owners in the league. So like you can't, being a huge percentage owner, You need some help. You don't want to, if the season's not going to be a good season financially, then you don't want to be stuck with the bill at the end of the year. So we went out and said, let's look for some good owners. And so we've done that, and we're in the process of continuing that.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's smart. Going back to your business, do you do a lot of cross promotion between, the scuba and the team, or is it more team to scuba?
We do some, when a lot of times I'll take up some of the unused advertising and put things up, and I'll pay for the signage and then just put them up. And then when somebody else wants to buy it immediately, for me, it's no brainer, take it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can get as much advertising as we need there. And so sometimes there's some cross promotions. One of the things that, I've been trying to work with Jason on is showing him how, all right, so we have all these contacts with the Lions. We have all these contacts with scuba diving, and we have, for these other things. So he and I actually started another business together, which was Go Jump and Slide, which is a bouncy house business. And so
Smart.
one of the things we do is, we talked about it where every time we rent out a bouncy house, let's give them a ticket to a game, and then, or a free swimming lesson or a free scuba lesson or something along those lines. Because there are people that are looking for adventure and everything else. So yes, there has been some cross promotion of different things, and we look for those opportunities to make that happen.
So let's talk a little bit about the league and, how is the league structured? Because a lot of fans don't really understand or know. They see Chris Siegfried as the commissioner. They think that, he makes all the decisions and, kind of dictates everything. But how is the league, kind of set up from a leadership and management and structure standpoint?
Okay, so as far as the leadership goes, there are three. The league is run by a board, and there's a board of directors. Every team provides one person to the board and an alternate. So right now there are 14 members on that board. There is an executive board made up of 3 members, which is Rob Storm, Steve Corinne, and myself. And the executive board, it's run by the board itself. The executive board might guide some direction, or
a little more hands-on.
A little more hands-on and more day-to-day. But we allow Chris to operate most of the day-to-day items. Whenever something that is going to be kind of a major item, we usually go to the executive board and we figure out what to do from there. But Chris, he will probably do a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but for the most part, the decisions are all made by the ownership. The league, there is no one person that owns the league. The league is owned by the teams. I believe the NFL set up that way as well. Mm-hmm. But the league is owned by the teams, and each team has an equal vote. So while Jacksonville may think they're the great thing, they get the same vote that I do in Columbus. Right. And so that's the great part about it is, if you look at Columbus, we are I don't know if the NAL would let us into the league now if we were coming in as a new team. We're just a tiny market compared to, we have a couple 100,000 people in our area versus, we're definitely the Green Bay of the National Arena League. But then you look at, Albany, or when we had the New York streets in, 28 million people or something like that. And then you've got Jacksonville with, I think it's 1.8 million if you look at the whole metro area. Orlando. Sometimes I look at this and like, what are the Columbus Lions doing here? Because one of my friends, one of the guys that I've got a little group of people that I use as a sounding board, and I think Skylar said, you know what? Because I asked him, what would I talk about on the show? When you asked me to be on the show, I said, what would I even talk about? Skylar goes, his answer was he said, the Columbus Lions are football's greatest underdog story. And that was a quote from him. And I said, you're right. Because if you look at that first championship game that Steve likes to talk about all the time, here's the situation. We had just formed the NAL. Well, not we, I wasn't a part of it at the time, but the NAL had just formed. And they brought in the Columbus Lions, who came from the PIFL, which is probably a tier 3 league. And then you have the Jacksonville Sharks, which came from the AFL, probably a tier 1 league. Right. And we're kind of pushing it into a, kind of what I don't know. I'm not really big into the tiers, but just to kind of make understand the story. And then we're now in a tier 2 league, but it's really a tier 3 team playing in the championship game against a tier 1 team. I walked on the field, and I'm a big guy. I mean, these players were massive on the Jacksonville Sharks. I look at our team. We carried almost the exact same team from the PIFL into the next season because we'd had them for 5 and 6, 7 years. And we look at the Sharks, and it was the same team that they had in the AFL. And, we had no business being on the field. But you know what? We took them. I can remember I was sitting next to the bench in the front row with a bunch of their fans. And at first, and I'm wearing my Columbus stuff, and everybody's like, and all the Lions are coming over talking to me and everything. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, we're down like 20 to 5 or something like that at the halftime, 21 to 5. And we somehow come back. Jason does a miracle and starts to come back. And next thing I know, we have about a minute left in the game. We're only down by 5 points, and Jason's got the ball on his own on their own 5-10 yard line. He starts marching down the field, and that arena was silent. You could have heard a pin drop because they were so worried that they were about to lose a game to this rinky-dink team from Georgia. And it was amazing. The people around me started almost congratulating. I mean, they were like, man, I can't believe you guys are pulling this out. I can't believe you pulled this out. And we get on the 5 yard line. Jason calls a timeout to burn a little bit more of the clock. And we have one bad play. With the excitement of everything going on, the snap from center got fumbled, and it ended up costing us the game. And you could just see the emotion on our players. Just the game was ours. All we had to do was walk 5 yards into that end zone, and we were going to be the NAL champions for the first year and beat the mighty Jacksonville Sharks. And it would have been the greatest underdogs. It was the biggest Cinderella story you could imagine, and we made one mistake at the very end.
You were one play away from a Disney made-for-TV movie.
Right. And what's interesting, and I'll have to get Jason, if he's on, to share this link, but our local TV, CTV being one of our big sponsors, produced a show for that and sent it to ESPN and actually won an award from ESPN.
Nice. Jason says Moneyball, man, being smart. I like it. So was that have you won any championships?
Well, the Lions went to 4 championships in a row. I forget what the first league was, but we were in one league, and then we won the 2 years before we joined the NAL. We won both championships. Now, I think somebody mentioned that. I think it was Terry last night mentioned that we were the bullies of those leagues. We really were. We beat some teams 100 to nothing. It was 100 something to nothing, and we beat them 83 to 7. And we just dominated. We dominated so much in those leagues that in the championship game of that second championship, there's Jason just put the link up for that thing. If you watch it, it's a pretty amazing show. You can see if you've never seen emotion on football, this is emotion. But if you let's see, in the championship game, we were beating them so bad that they quit the game with 5 minutes left in the game, and they walked off the field and went home.
Damn.
And this was a 21-team league, and we absolutely destroyed them.
Well, I can tell you this. It's so hard to go to a game and not have a good time. And, I've seen it, over the years just with, a lot of owners come from like yourself. They've been out to games. They get attached. They see, how big of an impact the team can have in the community, and, get to know the players, the coaches, and there's like a nice camaraderie about it. And there's a lot of ways to, like I said, I think, get things out of it, so to speak, without it being cash necessarily.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, and I'll speak for both Casey and I and Mike Hall. We are all in this because of kids. We all bought into the team. So for me, it was the Waterboy kid that got me involved. And then since I got married, now I have 4 daughters, And so with the 4 daughters, they weren't really into football. And then we started watching some games. When I would travel to Washington to visit them, we would start watching some games on YouTube. And then when they came to the thing, they weren't football people, but they are football people now, because they come to a game, we're sitting there, you're 8, where else can you be 10 inches away from a field of play in football? We are so close that literally the players are leaning on the thing, and we're having to back up because the players are in our faces. Or the coach comes over and tells you, "Hey, here's the next play," as everybody around you is watching. Or and I thought I was going to get a fine for this one time, but a ball comes flying through. I leaned so far over the field and swatted at the ball but it was kind of funny because my fingertip just barely touched, but you could hear it. And the referee looks at me like this real quick, and because it really should have been fan interference, but the opposing team caught the ball, so he just let it go, which is fine. But I don't know. I'm not sure if I hit it or it was just the sound, but it was just this barely thing. But to be able, I saw some plays in Jacksonville where the fan reached over the thing and just grabbed the kickoff returner. He just grabbed him, and but the fans
prove that. You cannot prove that.
Yeah, the fans can get so involved. If you look, most of the people say, "What's the place you don't want to go play?" Almost every time in the NAL, it's Columbus Lions. It's Columbus, Georgia, in the arena at the Civic Center, because it is everybody's just right on top of you. You're playing, and it almost feels like blood sport kind of thing, where people are just going crazy. You're hitting into the wall. I can remember a time I was in Greensboro at the Cobras game, and my daughter flew over there with us. With Mike Hall, got a little private plane to fly us all out there real quick to the game. So we're out there, and my daughter's doing the water boy things, and she's on the bench, and she's not paying attention because the ball, there's a whole lot of things going on at the same time on the field. So she's looking one way. And the next thing you know, here comes a receiver coming straight at her, smacks her right in the face, helmet, everything. She's laid out on the ground. Her glasses are flew off. She gets up and she has the biggest grin on her face. Like it was this huge thing that, they're trying to help her up, and they think she's got they're worried she's got a concussion, but she's got this grin like, "Oh, I can't believe that just happened to me." So, but most of the owners, like Casey Smith, said, "I want to be back in." When I was involved in football 4, my kids were too young to enjoy it. I want to come back in. And I want to enjoy football, but I don't want to be a single entity owner or single owner and do this. And then Mike Hall, his family, they're staunch supporters of the team, and of course he's one of the owners as well. He as far as shares goes, he's got the second behind myself. But we drag our families to all the games. We drag our families up to New York. We did everything together. Just an amazing time. And I'm looking forward to going to Ontario and to some other places, and all these the new arenas, to Albany, and then I'm looking forward to the expansion that's coming up.
Yeah, and just touching on the family thing, it's funny because my kids are a little older now. Daughter's 23; she's out on her own, and my son just turned 17. So I was talking to my son the other day, and he's like, "Dad, one of the most fun times in my life was when you would take me out to practice." And I remember it was like up in St. Louis. So he was probably like 9-10 years old. And we would practice at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And it's school nights. I'm a good parent, I guess, right? But like I would say, look, come along with me. We'll grab something to eat. We'll go to practice. And so what you guys are saying, they may not realize it now, or even you guys, the magnitude of it, but those kids are going to remember all that stuff like the rest of their lives. And my kids, we traveled everywhere. We went to every road game. So it's a pretty cool thing. And now they're a little older and they don't want to be around me, so they probably wouldn't go. But
right. Well, my 5-year-old, she's 5 now, but she was 4 and 3 and 4 years old. So we took her to one game. The first game we played against the Orlando Predators. it left such a lasting impact. This is what, not this past season that we missed, but the season before that.
Uh-huh.
This left such a lasting impact that every time she talks about football, she talks about the Orlando Predators. And she was looking around. I have a big stack of footballs. Got to be careful how I say that, but I got a big stack of footballs, and she couldn't find an Orlando Predators one. She was demanding that I get one. And so we had to go back to the ownership group of the Orlando Predators to get us a football, and eventually did, because she wanted to play, because that's the team that she knew. It's the only team she's been to, because she goes to bed at 7 o'clock at night. And so, if you look at it, so when I was a kid, I would have killed for some of these opportunities that, say, my kids and what they're getting now.
Me too.
I was in high school, and we were such huge football fans. And I need to tell this story. My best friend at the time, Lauren Oliver, and we were in Spain. We couldn't watch. There was no TV of football. The only time they would ever get football in was the bowl games at the end of the year and the Super Bowl. But they came on at 2 a.m. So we would always try to find a way to go watch those games at 2 o'clock in the morning on the base, because we lived about 30 miles away. And I mean, it was a crazy time, because it was school nights, and we're trying to do it. So we spent 4 years listening to football games. We couldn't watch them. We just spent 4 straight years listening to football. We were such huge fans of football that we had this little football game. It was this weird little disc that you shoved in a slot, and then so on the front side it had the play that you ran to. You had like 10 discs, and on the back side it had 6 defenses that you could run: prevent defense, or run defense, or pass defense, whatever. And so so you would hand the disc to your opponent, and he would slide it into this game, and then however he slid it in, it was the defense that would run, and then this little voice would come out, 3-yard run, something along those lines. We played an entire NFL football season keeping stats, and it took an hour per game. At the time, I think there's 28 teams, so 14 games per week. So 14 hours a week. We played an entire NFL season and kept the stats of every single player. That's how big of fans we were of football, and so it was just an amazing time. If I had one, I would love to get my buddy Lauren. I mean, from the top to a game. So if he's listening, you need to come out and watch this year. He's out in Arizona. Not
a bad drive or short little flight to Ontario too, if he wants to come out there.
Yeah, I'll make sure he gets out to a game, but to be able to do something at the level that we do now would just be amazing.
Just, wrapping up a few things. What are you guys doing, in prep with, the COVID situation right now? Obviously there's some vaccines out. How is Georgia? How is, the Columbus Civic Center as far as fans and all that stuff?
Well, we're kind of sitting. We have to play a waiting game. We're waiting for the Civic Center to tell us. I know Jason's kind of been taking more the lead on that. I think I'm not sure if this is correct, but I think what I was told that we can put up to 1,500 people there the first quarter of the year, and then but they don't know what's going on the fourth quarter, because there's so many factors that we just don't know. How widespread will the vaccines go? How at what point will the people in our area get them? Will there be any, with the new administration coming into the White House, what changes will that make? So there's a lot we don't know. The best thing we can do is just prepare to play this season, so that way the moment that it drops and the moment that football touches the ground, we're ready to go. So we're focused mainly on that, because there's not much we can do with the COVID situation, and there's nothing we're gonna be able to do at a team level to change what kind of the rules and regulations that we're using, or that we're given. So.
Oh, don't put that up there, Jason. So, all right, a couple last things. What is your favorite arena on the road to go to as a visiting team?
Oh, let's see. So if for the arena itself, that's a toss-up. It's got to. I hate going to the Cobras arena. I'll just be honest. I hate going to Carolina. So that's not it for sure.
Why do you hate that
Well, they were kind of our rival. I mean, they were our rivals. I mean, when we played them in the second NAL championship game, we walked in with the most beat up ragtag team. We picked one guy had played for us a couple of years before. We flew him in the day that night of the game, or the not the night of the game, but the night. I think at 1:00 in the morning before the game, because we were out of receivers. We had lost all of our receivers that game. We lost our quarterback. We lost a couple of our. I mean, I think we had 2 people that had started the game previously playing for us in that game. We just got. It was just a terrible. So it's just a terrible time, and we. Well, and now that Jason says it, I'll tell you this. Jacksonville is one of the 2 that I love going to, but it's hard. And then also going to Orlando. Orlando's just a state-of-the-art facility. I mean, they gave us a box our first game there. My daughter and Jason's daughter could go up and play, and that box was just absolutely amazing. But it was so far up you could barely see the game. I mean, it's so high up. But I went to a Jacksonville game. And I'll tell you, I kind of got in a fight with Steve because I am a fan of the game. I'm literally a fan of the game. I am not at the game once the game starts, my people even know, don't come bugging me during the game to get some work done. I'll answer a question or two, but I am a fan. I'm there to watch the game. So every arena I go to, I talk to the owners and say, hey, I need a front row seat. I don't want to sit 5 rows back with the other owners. I don't want to sit 20 rows back. I want a front row seat. And I've had to pay for some of those seats sometimes. So I went to Steve and said, hey, where's my seat? He goes, man, I don't have a seat for you. We sold them all. And I got so mad at him, and I was just pissed. I just turned around and walked away. And I feel bad because it's not his fault. I mean, he's got to make money too. But
what you do for that is you just go on the bench. Like I used to have my coach add me as an assistant coach so that I could legally be on the, and I don't get involved in that, but I just stand in the bench area.
I want to experience it as the fans do.
Okay.
I can go on the bench if I want to, but it's not the same for me. I want to see it with the fans. I want to interact with the fans from the other teams. And when I go, I generally am sitting packed in with other fans. I'm not sitting with my own owners. I'm sitting with people from the other teams. But I went to one game, and Kevin and Jason invited me to go sit in their suite with them. And so I went over there and I sat in the seats, and I'm like I said, I'm kind of a big guy, and I sat in the suite, and I was like, and I'm feeling around. I'm like, this is the most comfortable seat I have ever sat in. It was one of the Dream Suite seats. And I'm sitting there, and there are girls coming and bringing me popcorn, and there's drinks coming. I'm like, I just walked 20 feet this way, and there's all the food I want to eat. And I was like, man, this is the life. And so I brought that to Columbus. So we eliminated an entire section of seats, and we created suites around field level suites, because as a fan, that is what I want, the experience of the game. I want the players flying over the thing, nailing me. I'm looking forward. Lonnie, if you're listening, you better hand me a football after a touchdown. And I don't care if I got to pay the fine that's coming from that, but I want the football, and you need to do that. And the football's flying over, the players flying over the game, the coaches coming and talking to you. I can remember, the other opposing coaches coming to ours. I think Billy must have hated it because he got yelled at more than anybody in the world coming to our arena. And so just the excitement of all that. But the Columbus Lions brought in suites this year, so the entire field around the field is going to be suites.
A couple of questions. Somebody was asking what you think about adding rebound nets.
I've never watched a game with the rebound nets. I'll be honest. I never watched any of the arena football games or the AFL games when they were, back in its heyday. So I don't know a whole lot about them. But the big key where I think it would probably not fly on any of the votes in the NAL is simply because it's a huge additional cost, and you got to retrofit some of the arenas. And one of the things that what's that?
More just in the setup cost. I mean, just
it's the setup.
Install it.
It's the setup. You gotta set them up, install them. You got to do all that stuff, and it's really comes down to like Jason said, it comes down to money.
Yep.
And we really like what we're doing with the deuces, and that's, I mean, the deuce is one of those things that just drives fans nuts. When you kick a deuce, when Tyler Arasa kicked 5 deuces that game, it was absolutely amazing, and just the crowd was just going nuts.
What about Ironman football? I've heard a lot of talk about that lately as well.
I know there's some people in the league that are big proponents of that. We lost a quarterback. We lost, Mason Espinoza. He was an amazing quarterback on target. I think he threw 5 interceptions in the first half of his first game against the Sharks and didn't throw but 3 interceptions in the next 2 seasons after that. So he was something along those lines, but just amazing guy. He went down with injury. I just can't see a guy who plays 2 ways protecting a quarterback that's the face and the value of, the face of the team. When he went down, we were in first place that year, and we lost the next 5 of the 6 games coming up. So I have a hard time with the defensive lineman protecting my quarterback because he has to be able to play both ways. So I'm not sure how I really feel about that. I think the concept is really cool. I mean, to have some guy come out and play Ironman, there's a few of them now. There was a guy last year from the Sharks that played both ways, and I think he may have even. I wonder if I think it may have been Gilchrist. I'm not sure, but who won the MVP last year at the championship game, or Chris Gilchrist, but I'm not sure. Oh yeah.
How many? What is that all about?
Well, Jason was known. All right, so at one point, as long as you won the challenges, you could just kind of keep going.
Like unlimited challenges?
It felt like it, but you could get 3 challenges a half, and that seems like forever. Wow. And Jason was the master of challenges. Because he knew the rule book better than the officials do, because he helped. He was a Cody Saul. It was Cody Saul who was. Yeah, you're right. Cody Saul was that guy. I remember talking to him from my nice seat that the Jacksonville Sharks gave me. It was funny because I was talking trash to him. He's right in my ear. I'm right in his ear. And then he catches the ball like 2 seconds later, runs it down for a touchdown. We got to get better. One of the things that we've got to get better in our team is kickoff return. We got to learn how to tackle better. But
less challenges by Gibson, and
no, we need more of them. More of the challenges. He used to win almost every one, so that's why we'd keep going and get more of them. Then eventually we kind of toned it down, where I think you get 1 or 2. You get 1 or 2 a half. I think you get 3 a game or something like that. I don't remember what the rule is now, but he would win them all the time, and so why not? In my opinion, you should be able to challenge anything, and if you win the challenge, you should be able to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's not excessive to the point where you're just doing it to disrupt the game, and
right.
So if you start losing so many, then.
Well, if you lose, once you lose one, I think that at that point you're kind of done. So he wouldn't challenge it unless it was something that he was 100% sure of. But like I said, he knows the rule book inside and out, because he helped. At the time he was the head of the rules committee, so he knew it better than the officials did. And so a lot of times we'd have to break the rule book out during the game and show them.
I know, because I wrote it. I could see him doing that right now. What is the best part about being an owner, the majority owner of the Columbus Lions?
Well, it's not all the extra hours that it takes to do some of that stuff. So I think the best part is really just having the ability to use what talents I have to make help the team get better, help the team survive, help the team going. I mean, Columbus Lions have been around for 15 years, and I've only been a part of it for about 5 of those years. But our slogan's 15 years of family, fun, and football. And to be able to do that, and then the other piece is being able to be a fan at the games. Being able to be in that front row seat. I mean, if you haven't experienced a front row seat at a game, then it's amazing. But but my petty one, if I could list a petty thing, going to Orlando or any of the arenas, I get to park next to the team bus. So I get to park sometimes so I get to park right there next to the team bus, and so when I don't have to go search for parking or figure all that out. I just go follow the bus in, and that's where I'm going.
So I guess you got a good PA announcer. He's the second best in the league as far as Joshua's concerned. So
yeah, Eric Fowler, he's great. His voice is so deep and powerful that he overpowers the mics all the time. So, I mean, it's deep.
Any last things you want to add about what you guys are working on in Columbus? I know I try to keep them at about an hour, and I know I could talk. I mean, you got some great stories and some information. So.
Well, so not so much from Columbus, but from the league level. Here's one of the things that I'm very excited about is I'm excited about fantasy football coming out. One of the things that I did with a little group of guys that I spent time with, online, going over the NAL. They're from all different teams. There's people from Carolina, Jacksonville, and some other teams. And we've been doing fantasy football for 2 years now. And I think I won both years because I'm just a fantasy football legend. But we've been doing it for 2 years playing, and I'm so excited that we're going to be able to do it with a professional, because we've been doing it with we abused one of the Jacksonville interns to make him do all the stats for us and calculate all this, all the scores and points and all that. And we had to do a lot of rule changes along the way, but I'm excited for the fact that as a league, we are going to have fantasy football this year. And because, when I did it last year, I picked up almost all Columbus Lions, and I win with the Columbus Lions team because our stats are good. But I picked up one player from the Massachusetts Pirates, Marty Gilliard. He turned out to be the number one player on fantasy football for us. And it was interesting because nobody really brought up that fact during the year. And he scored so many touchdowns and had so many points, so many catches, so many everything. The only sad part about it is I friend requested him on Facebook, and he never accepted it, so he ignored it. Probably because, like I said, nobody knows who I am. I'm just one of the executive directors and the team owner, but I don't think anybody even knows that. So, but it's going to allow all of the people that follow the NAL to get to know players from every team. Because imagine when your player is playing on a team, on another, it's not your team playing, but your player's playing. You're going to be watching those games.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. I think it's going to be a great addition. And I think that's going to be one of the things that helps the NAL really push forward.
Well, the one thing I keep hearing from people I talk to, and I've been talking to Jason a lot over the last month, is just, it's all about fan engagement. Like this show,
Right.
We're trying to get more out there with the fans and connect. And, I think NAL Live, I think the fantasy football, some of these other programs that you guys are working on behind the scenes, I mean, it's just going to enhance the fan experience. And that's really what it's all about. Because if we don't have fans, then we're not going to be doing this,
Right.
and so it's important that, the fans do participate, give us feedback,
Right.
on this forum or reach out to the teams. But, we can't do every idea that you come up with. So don't be offended if your idea is not used,
Right.
but definitely want to see, that engagement. So,
Well, I've got a question. I actually have a question for the fans. One of the things that we've talked about in Columbus, and I think we brought it up at the league meetings, but we're not sure really to go for it, is what do people think about having a 3-point play after a touchdown? So if I would love to see some comments. If anybody, I know the XFL did it. What if we brought something like that to the NAL? What does everyone think about that?
I would check with Casey too. We did something in the X League indoor where we had different points for extra points based on where the ball was placed.
Right.
And,
Right.
I think getting creative like that is pretty good. You have Josh Jackson up in Jacksonville asked, what do you think about any crossover championship games with other leagues? Do you think that is ever a possibility?
We've talked about that for years. I know Jeff Bushey, when he was part of the league, he was trying to set that up. And I know we've had a bunch of discussions with the IFL about it. The hard part is we played 2 completely different games. I would love to see a championship game. I remember last year, the last season we played, Jason and I actually went up to Sioux Falls and watched a game between Sioux Falls and the Arizona teams. And, so it was a really fun trip for us because we were on an off week. And we said, hey, why don't we go up there and watch a game and see what the IFL is about? And we wanted to look at some of the rules that they were doing, and so we went up there, and it was just he and I. It was for us. It was like boys' night out. And we went out there, and imagine me, just a basic fan of the game, and I'm in a meeting with Kevin Guy. It's my wife. I played American football. I play soccer in Spain. But so I'm in a meeting with Coach Riggs, Kevin Guy, and Jason Gibson. And I'm sitting there, and they're talking, and I'm not saying, there's not much I can say, because I'm now sitting it was just a meeting before one of the games. And I'm sitting there, and it is the 3 winningest coaches in arena football that are working today. And I'm sitting there as just a fly on the wall is what I felt like. And so it was a great time. The best part about that trip, though, was Dutch ovening Jason in the car on the way back.
That's always the best. All right, I have one last question. Who was the biggest shit talker at the meetings last week?
Oh gosh. All right, so Terry is he's always up there talking smack. Steve was probably laying on the thickest, because of course the Jacksonville Sharks did win 2 of the 3 NAL championships, so he's laying it on the thickest. Rob was probably a little subdued, but normally Rob gets his one-liners in, and then it's all done. And yeah, I think Steve is probably doing the most of it, because we were in Jacksonville, and it was his home place. And Greg Fenorio wasn't there, so we missed that part of it. But it was kind of funny to watch Patrick. Patrick was sitting right behind me from the Ontario, California team, the Bandits. And it was kind of fun, because he was a lot more laid back than I expected. But I can remember when he walked in, he was tired. He had just flown all night and just gotten there. And when he was at the show, I know he was talking about how he just had to soak up everything. And, he was just soaking up everything behind us. And he was like, "Wait a minute, you guys are gonna do this? How do you do that?" And so he really, it was great to see. All the owners sharing their thoughts, sharing their opinions, and sharing what works for them, what doesn't work for them. It was really good. I've had my fights with the owners during the season, but at the league meetings, it's always been a lot of fun. But I would say hands down, it's going to be Jacksonville.
Yeah, it seems like it. I see them on social media, so they seem like the big. I guess they got the trophies to back it up. But they have a nice target on them now. 6 other teams are gunning for them.
But if you look at it, this kind of speaks to how well the organization is and how well they do in football. But in the game against us, they were 1 play away from losing that championship. And in the game against Carolina, they were down by 11 points with a minute left in the game, and the Carolina Cobras had the ball. I don't know how you lose that game, but the Carolina Cobras have the ball. And it's hard to blame blowing an 11-point lead on the officials, but yeah, it is what it is.
You know how those officials are. We're not allowed to talk about them on NAL Live. That was the one stipulation.
Yeah. No, I think it was a great game. Jacksonville won both of them, so you gotta give it to them. They've got 2 trophies, and that's what counts in the end.
Well, Joshua, I want to thank you for joining me. It was good to get to talk to you. We've talked a few times, but never really,
right.
In depth like this. It's good to kind of get to know you a little bit, and I'm sure the fans too, especially now they're going to see, oh, that crazy guy is our owner over there. So, hey, keep doing a good job. You and Jason are doing awesome stuff up there. Anything I could do to help you guys, you can call me. So,
absolutely,
appreciate it.
Well, I love what you're doing is one of the best things that the league's needed for a long time. I've loved the show. I've watched every episode, and I've got
a listener and a watcher.
I appreciate everything that you do for the league. I think what you're doing is going to really make a big difference.
Well, that's the goal, is just help elevate the game. It's such a great game, and we'll be seeing you. I'm going to come up there and get those scuba lessons and check out a game. So next week, we'll be back for another show. So see you guys next Tuesday.